This video is going to be a lot shorter than most of my normal videos for the sheer fact that most of what makes this particular song I'm going to talk about amazing is really difficult to describe. Billy Woods is most certainly not a household name, and not that he wants to be, in all honesty. Billy Woods values privacy like few artists do, with his birth name and precise age still a mystery to the public. He also conceals his face in most of his public appearances. For those who might not know who Billy Woods is, he's been making music in the New York underground scene for around 25 years now. His style is characterized by dense, abstract lyricism over some of the most interesting experimental production choices out there. He packs his rhymes in with literary, historical, and pop culture references in a way that very few songwriters do. Billy Woods has been active over the last couple of years. He released Maps with Kenny Siegel and We by Diabetic test strips as part of the Arm & Hammer duo, both in 2023. Both dark albums that somehow managed to hang on to a strong sense of humor. His 2025 release is very different. Gollywog is a fully fledged horror film, and I know some people have categorized this album as horrorcore, but I think that's slightly misleading. It swaps some of the transgressive, overly violent, dark imagery that's associated with horrorcore for the real world horror that Billy and us bear witness to. Gollywog is more surreal and uncanny than anything you could describe normally as horrorcore, and I would love to do an entire video on the full album, but one, it will probably be like a 2-hour video, and two, it will legitimately ruin my mood for a couple of weeks. However, I do want to talk about the one song that unnerved me from the very first listen. That song is Waterproof Mascara. This song fucked me up. I was on a long haul flight back from Barbados to the UK when I first heard it. And I shit you not, the moment Waterproof Mascara started playing was the very second the lights went out. I need to talk about the instrumental first before we get to the lyrics. Produced by Preservation, it's built around a very prominent sample of a woman literally weeping, what sounds like a ghostly theremin and some faint bass. It's meant to unsettle you from the jump, and honestly, I felt listening to this beat like I felt the first time I watched The Babadook. It's incredibly bleak but moving. Billy Woods' first verse is uncharacteristically blunt and direct. Watched my mother cry from the top of the stairs, scared when it came through the walls, I covered my ears. That image of a child confused by their mother's anguish is heartbreaking, and it feels like he's momentarily regressed to that very child with the simplicity of the lyrics. Half hoping you know who would die, and then he did. He raps in reference to the real-life death of his father he experienced at the age of 11. Billy Woods has this really unique skill of clearly being a very private person who is able to inject incredibly intimate autobiographical snapshots in his art. He makes a reference to a previous track of his, Hootie, from his 2019 Hiding Places album. In Hootie, the lyrics about being careful what you wish for and hidden passports is delivered in this sing-song, nursery rhyme-like style. On Waterproof Mascara, he recontextualizes his own lore. Now, this is a stark reminder of how alone him and his mother are. How many times I gotta tell you kids, it's us in this room, that's it. The horror here isn't supernatural. There are no demons or ghosts or monsters. It's a mother raising children alone with no help or support. That's part of the reason why it reminded me of The Babadook. If you've seen that film, you know that the horror that permeates isn't really that big bad monster. It's a mother's grief that has ripple effects affecting the relationship with her own child. Verse 2 is where Billy Woods makes one of his trademark literary references. Sometimes it's all you can do not to do it like Sylvia Plath. My house full of gas, my kids cry, then laugh right after. Psychopaths. Sylvia Plath's poetry was deeply personal, vivid, and raw. Sylvia Plath was also clinically depressed, so much so that she attempted to take her own life on several occasions. She did eventually take her own life in the early 1960s in disturbing fashion by putting her head in her oven. She had sealed off the rooms in the house where her children were staying as well. Of course, his line about his house being full of gas is a reference to the manner in which Sylvia Plath died. Throughout the song, Billy Woods makes references to using weed as a paralyzing coping mechanism for his troubles, which may be the gas that his house is filled with. The idea that not doing what Sylvia Plath did by merely staying alive is an achievement of sorts in the world we live speaks to not only his particular situation, but the society we live in as a whole. Throughout Gollywog, Billy Woods comments on the state of this ultra-capitalist world that thrives on greed and exploitation. In 2025, in so-called developed Western countries, having the means to simply sustain yourself with shelter, clothing, and food feels like a success when it should be a basic right. Going back to Sylvia Plath, she was also in a tumultuous relationship with poet and author Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes would go on to write The Iron Man, later adapted to the perfect movie that is The Iron Giant. Ted Hughes wrote The Iron Man for his children as a way for them to cope with the passing of their mother. I feel like in this instance, Billy Woods is doing his own sort of Ted Hughes. His art is a way of expressing and making sense of unimaginable, unexplainable tragedy in his own world. It might be a reach, but Billy Woods himself has made it clear that his work is open to interpretation.
How do you engage with like people who come at you and like they have a perception of your album that's completely different than what you intended for it to be?
The author is not the final arbiter of what people can take away from a work. I grew up with a literary critic and scholars, so my mother is a person who advocates the idea that whether or not somebody intended to say something to a text, it could still be in there. People are going to judge it, people are going to interpret it. So approaching it kind of like having a child or something. And you know, if somebody's like, you know, I met your kid the other day and they're an asshole, I mean, maybe they are, you know?
Is there a sense of fear that comes with that?
I always came up understanding that that was how art works. Like if you don't want anyone to critique what you're doing or to have an opinion or to misinterpret, you should just keep it to yourself.
He also raps, I watched the slave cry for his master waiting for him to break kayfabe, but the poor bastard just sat there super untouched. This feels like a reflection of the absurdist obsession with capital we all seem to have, that spreads even to those who are disadvantaged themselves. That's why Billy then raps, you can't make this shit up, but you're welcome to try. It is truly absurdist and is stranger than fiction. Foraging firewood with a baby crying in the forest, don't you go looking for it. This is where the song turns into a twisted fairy tale. That baby crying in this instance is a trap. It's a siren song. It's someone or something masquerading as a victim when in reality they're ready to drain your life force. The people foraging firewood is us, the ordinary people just trying to exist and survive. The baby crying in this instance, to me, is the wealthy and the privileged, those with unimaginable wealth who cry when they're expected to pay their fair share, whose sole existence is to exploit working people. Just write how the white girl like her porridge, get scolded, scoffing out of the wrong plate, wake up bitch, you in the wrong place. This continues the fairy tale theme with an overt reference to Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This to me feels like a commentary on gentrification, on cultural appropriation, and the white savior complex. The idea that the white person is scolded in this instance for eating from the wrong plate, inserting themselves, or taking advantage of certain things. It is, of course, also amazing lyricism too, with the fact that Goldilocks ate from the plate that was too hot and was scolded. She cries for herself, surprised at the question like, who else deserved these tears? That is the complex of false oppression. This person who took advantage of certain communities now cries because they've been called out, they've been scolded. They now cry claiming they are persecuted, when in reality they are taking advantage of those who are persecuted. Billy punctuates this with one of the only moments of levity in the song when he responds with, I know you wasn't thinking it was you, pointing to the absurdity that the privileged and those who oppress others deserve our tears and sympathy because they were rightfully called out on their bullshit. The song closes with some Japanese dialogue lifted from the 1997 film Cure. It translates to, all the things that used to be inside of me, now they're outside, but the inside of me is empty. That to me is a meta commentary, not on just this song, but Billy Woods' art as a whole. He's been writing and making music for decades. Those dark, brooding thoughts are all on the outside now, but he's perhaps wondering what else he has left to say. That's the sense of dread and emptiness that he might be referring to. And that's where the song ends. It's a song that's hard to say you even enjoy. If you compare it to movies, I wouldn't say I enjoy something like Skinamarink or The Zone of Interest. They unsettle me in a way that I think is very human, and Waterproof Mascara does the exact same thing to me.